You're on.
I'm on.
Hi.
Hi. I'm Sylvie Rinaldi.
I'm Karina Tipton.
And this is Town Hall Tailgate! Oh my goodness, this is our 20th episode. So we planned a little tailgate party with some friends and a live studio audience tonight. So thank you guys for so much. Thank you for coming.
It's a little bit overwhelming, to be honest.
Yes, I'm super nervous, which I normally am not for Town Hall Tailgate. We'll let you guys go watch if you want from the others. We have snacks. We actually brought snacks. There's not any alcohol.
Yay!
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye for coming. Thank you.
They all came to the town board meeting and then they hung out for like an extra hour while we had some snacks and got ready to do this show.
Yeah, we got cupcakes from Calculated Confections. Mm-hmm. I was in Walden today, which are gone at this point. They were very good.
They're very good.
And some other nice beverages, but no alcohol beverages because we are on town property.
Yeah.
Just in case anybody
We didn't get a permit. The town board has to vote for the permit if you want to have alcohol on their property, and we didn't plan ahead.
That would have been a very awkward permit.
It would have been a hilarious conversation.
It would have been.
I can just hear Deputy Supervisor Ron Feller asking if there was going to be police on hand in case things got out of control. Because he asks that for every alcohol permit.
Yes,
he does. There's going to be an officer on, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Tonight is October 7th, and we are tailgating the town board meeting here in Montgomery, New York.
Yes.
So I just have to say that I don't feel as naturally excited and happy after this meeting because it was a very heavy meeting.
This was a very impactful meeting.
Yeah.
The public comment section was really well attended, and a lot of people stood up and spoke some serious truth. Yeah. And I think the best thing we can do, we can't recap or summarize what happened tonight.
Right.
We just really want to encourage you to go and watch the live stream because you need to watch it and you need to listen to it.
Yes. Yeah. The live stream can be found here on Residents Protecting Montgomery. Don Berger was filming, and then also the town of Montgomery has the live stream as well. So wherever you get your information, please sit down and watch the public comment for this meeting. I would say this was almost, I want to use the word historical, in that we haven't come across the amount of seriousness and public display of involvement in our community in such a strong way in a town board meeting in as far as I've been watching.
Yeah, I would agree.
Is that a right way to say it?
I do. The gravity of the conversation tonight was, I've never seen this level of gravity and honesty from people.
Yeah. There were times where I was pushed almost to tears. There were times where I was angry. It went through all of the motions, and I sat there, as we're running for election in November, and I just kept asking myself and telling myself, sit and listen and just let this information and these stories wash over and get into what I need to do to, really invest in what was going on.
Right. And I think a couple of the folks that spoke towards the end said your job as elected people is to listen to your constituents, and that was well taken.
Yeah.
Very well taken.
I will say, just so we're not totally
there's a
vague,
card going to pull out.
Yeah.
Just so,
is that the content of what was being discussed was the hiring of a chief of police for the town of Montgomery, which we've talked about in the past. And the way that this left off is that there were candidates who took the civil service exam for the chiefs, and where we left off last with them in the town board, were up for being interviewed and being considered for the position. And one of those candidates, there has been some, what's the word? Yes, I would say negative interactions with the community that have been very impactful and very serious, I think is also the way to say it. So community members came up and spoke about their experiences with this particular police chief candidate. That was not on the agenda tonight from the town board perspective, but we know from prior meetings that this was something that's been moving forward in the town, and we do know that this person took the chief's exam for civil service and is a candidate in the town.
That's right.
Right, that is confirmed.
And there is some urgency around this because the town is under a time frame from civil service. They've entered into a period of prescribed time to hire a chief. But yeah, we did hear at the end of the meeting that they had requested an extension to that time frame. So there's an extra 30 days added on, and I just hope that the town board takes what was said tonight into serious consideration.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm in agreement with that. Anything else on this? Anything else, audience, for how we can speak to this in the best way the
people are slowly backing away from the set.
Watch. I cannot say it enough, and I think that we should say it. Watch the meeting. Watch the public comment. Watch it when you can pay attention. I can't say it enough. Watch the public comment for this meeting.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
So you want to get into a few of the other things that were covered in the meeting?
Yes.
Okay. I definitely want to talk about the weight limits.
Yes, there's a public hearing to start off with.
We'll start with that.
Yep.
This actually started back in January for the initial discussion.
Yeah.
And tonight we the town board had a public hearing for a weight limit law on town roads. Mm-hmm. And they released the draft a couple of weeks ago, and this was the first time that they were hearing for the public on it.
Right.
And I want to say that, and I've said this in the public comment, I am in a lot of support for a weight limit law. I did have a lot of edits to the one that was in the draft form, and I went through every single one of those edits in the public comment.
Yes, yeah, and it sounds like, honestly, I mean, Sylvia and I, we both spoke, we both had some suggestions, some edits. We were not the only people that had specific questions or edits to make.
Yeah.
A couple of other people stood up and they had very good input as well.
Yes, I wrote down other people's questions that were really interesting and thoughtful.
Yeah.
So I think that where we're leaving off with this law is they kept the public hearing open. Essentially what the idea of the law, and I think that the intent of the law was spot on. It was the execution of how it would happen, right? How would we be able to actually implement the law that was up for question, but not the intent of having something. Was that certain roads in the town would have a 10-ton weight limit, certain roads in the town would have a 5-ton weight limit, and it would the traffic above those weight limits would be allowed if they were to or from local deliveries, on those roads. And there was a lot of question about enforcement for this because our current police do not have the ability to enforce weight limits because they need some kind of certification from the department.
Special DOT training.
Yes, and they don't have that yet.
No.
So this is an enforcement issue if we have a law and we can't actually, we can if other law enforcement comes in. I'm sure the state troopers can do it.
Right, but somebody said in the meeting that it was hard to get them in.
Right.
Maybe
you have to schedule them to
Walden
come.
may have it also. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I brought up in the public comment, like kind of right at the end after I went through all my edits in the law itself, is that some of the roads that were brought up in this meeting cover multiple municipalities within the town of Montgomery. So it might start in the town and end in the village of any of the villages or vice versa. And there's no comprehensive conversations that are being had about this law. And I think that, and I said this in the meeting, I think it's a great opportunity for the town and the villages to do this together because we should all have the same weight limits, especially on the roads that are in both jurisdictions. And one of the residents lived on the village of Montgomery side of Beaver Dam Road.
Right.
And then
apparently it's cut right down the middle of the road. Like, I guess if you're traveling towards Goodwill, you're on the town side of the road. If you're
after you cross over Wilson,
away
that's
from
village.
Yeah.
And she didn't realize that the weight limit would not apply to her side of Beaver Dam, which is just like 2 houses over from where it ended on the line. And it was just a wonderful point that she brought up. And I think that the town should very much consider. I'm not trying to create some kind of like bureaucratic delay.
Right.
That's not my intent. And it doesn't mean that I think that process should delay us passing a right law for the town, but I do think those conversations probably should have started happening prior to this. But since we're in the situation we are, they can absolutely happen going forward, but not in any way to delay this.
No, certainly not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that I thought this was good, and I'm glad that they decided to not close the public hearing and vote on the law tonight because there were a lot of edits.
Did they say they were going to keep it up until the middle of November? I'm not seeing that date on here.
So I wrote November 18th.
So the second town board meeting in November is when the public will reconvene.
Right, and we don't know if there will be a new draft law released prior to that. I would hope.
We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, we'll have to keep a lookout for it.
Yeah.
There was a lot. So that ended the public hearing.
Right.
And also, before I forget, Dan, could you just keep us an idea of how long we're going for today?
He's like, really you asked now. I'm 10 minutes in.
I know, but
I've done it for 19 meetings. You don't pay attention.
It's been 10 minutes.
I just wanted to be mindful.
I do want to say
so
though.
late.
I do want to say that somebody did stand up, Mr. Byam from Montgomery, the village of Montgomery.
Yes.
And he said that, and this is something that we have been talking about a lot. Like, why aren't our local officials advocating for us at the state level?
Yeah.
What he said is, why doesn't the town and the village work together to annex some of these state roads and to...
They call it abandon
the state road.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, his example, because he lives in the village of Montgomery, as full disclosure, I do, right on Union Street. His example was abandon 211 at 416. So if people are coming down 211 from Middletown, then if they have to stay on a state road, they'll just go up 416 and the stretch through the village would be abandoned. And then the village and the town for that little bit could be in control of that road's destiny, of its management, of its enforcement.
I thought that the word, at first when I heard abandon the road, I was like, what?
Like I want to do with Canning Road, to make a linear park along the Wellkill River. It's not the same.
No, it doesn't mean abandon the road. He just means that right now, since 211 is a state road, my understanding is that it would ask the state
to walk away,
to give it back, or not give it back, give it to the jurisdiction, so it would become a town or village road based on, town for a part and then village for the other part, up until the light. So I thought that was a really interesting idea, and he said that it was effectively done in other municipalities.
Yes.
So
again, like this is the thing that we've been saying for so long.
Yeah.
Why don't our local officials advocate for us at the state level?
Yeah.
Because instead they can just say, oh, that's a state road, we're not in control of anything, and just pass the buck.
Right.
And this is a path that, there could be some real action.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing that he brought up, which was a really valid point, is that if you how will this law affect future traffic patterns? So I think it was hard. That I thought was a really interesting way of thinking about it.
Mark Hoyt brought it up also.
Yes. So he's in it as well. Is have we done just an analysis of, once we make these laws, trucks we know typically come from point A and they're going to port B, we should know where that is, especially because we have the Neelytown Road corridor, so we know the traffic patterns, and if we don't, we should, because we've done enough traffic studies that we could probably go back.
One might say that perhaps the town of Montgomery should undergo a holistic town-wide traffic study.
Was that in the comprehensive plan, Karina?
It might have been.
Were you on the committee?
Yes. And do you know, I think I heard this perhaps 3-ish years ago when Amazon and Medline first came in front of the planning board.
Right.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Such a good idea.
To have some data.
Right.
Some data-driven policy.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Wouldn't it be nice to have some data?
Pretty good.
I'm going to stop right now.
This is like, the song's really close to my heart. Because you know anything about me. Which is I want as much data as possible.
We like data-driven policy.
We do.
Yeah.
So, the closing up, I think, on the weight limit law, there were other really thoughtful public comments that came up in this meeting.
I especially appreciated the important comments about agriculture, people being able to drive their work vehicles home. Like, would that be precluded? All of these things are like really important, and it really spoke to people who really know what it's like to live and work in Montgomery, speaking up on their own behalf and on their neighbors' behalf.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they brought up great points that weren't covered in the law, and I thought it was really applicable.
Yeah.
So, all right.
Do you want to talk any more about public comments after the public hearing?
I think there's like a few things to mention. Okay. Let's say just a couple of them. I think that what was not on the town agenda was Medline.
That's right.
And Don Berger brought it up in the meeting and spoke to it. And I think that it's worth mentioning because it wasn't on the agenda. I wished that it would have been, because I've been talking to a lot of residents in the town of Montgomery, as you have, and so many people ask me, what's going on with Medline?
Right.
And I think this is a good place to at least say what we think is going on.
Hey, Sylvie, what's going on with Medline?
Okay. Thanks, Karina. Oh.
Do you want me to do this?
I think I can do it.
I think you can too.
Okay, so my understanding of what's going on, and you can definitely...
We're a team.
Yeah, thank you. Is that Medline is due to be assessed for its final value once it receives its certificate of occupancy. And there's a period of time when it's usually a scheduled assessment afterwards.
I've seen the notice in the newspaper. If you have any problems with your assessment, you can go down to the town and file a complaint with the town assessor. Like all of us who own property are able to do this.
Right. So because they're finishing up their construction, they're probably due to get their certificate of occupancy, which would kick off the process for them to get assessed at their full value. So they have gone ahead prior to that happening and gone to the State Supreme Court of New York and requested that their final value, which I'm confused about, isn't actually determined, but what they think will be determined, be reduced by over 80%.
Right.
And that is in litigation. The court date started today because you sent me the info on it.
Yeah, you can look up any court case. If you just Google for New York State Supreme Court, they've got a really great search function.
Yeah.
You can get them to send you email alerts for when the appearances are.
Yeah.
And I forwarded it to Sylvie, and she was like, "Are you going to court?"
That was like, "You're being summoned to court?" And she's like,
No, that's Medline. It's just my notice.
Yeah, it was your notice.
I just want to point out, though, when I did search for this, Medline is doing the same thing against the tax assessor in, I believe, Glens Falls, New York.
Which is not that far from here.
Which kind of, no, it's very close, to within 2 hours.
Yeah.
And it speaks to, maybe 3, it speaks to the fact that this is a giant national corporation that is owned now by a private equity firm that has got an army of lawyers at their beck and call, and this is the way they're choosing to do business with the small towns in New York State.
Yeah. I think that research, I think, was like just really opened my eyes to what they're attempting to do. And I think that when Don was speaking in the public comment period, he brought up that these, actually, Don, I wrote your quote down, that when these projects come to the town, they're sold to the community that these applicants are good neighbors and that their building will have no significant impact. And Medline, for those who don't remember, had at first requested to get a tax incentive, to a pilot, payment in lieu of taxes, which is reduced taxes, and then at the final last minute took it back and said, no, we'll pay our taxes in full. And that kind of was supposed to create, I think, a sense of goodwill. And I think for many people, they said, oh, okay, they are a good neighbor, they are going to pay their taxes in full. Well, cut to them about to get their certificate of occupancy at full assessment, and they're taking us to court to reduce the assessment. That's not how a good neighbor interacts.
And just because we lived this in Montgomery very hard, Medline was first in front of Orange County IDA, which had already given them a tax pilot for 10 years. When those 10 years expired, they were like, we're going to move to a different place in Orange County. Hey, Orange County, how about another tax incentive?
Yeah.
And then they were turned down by the town of Hamptonburg. They abruptly shifted to the town of Montgomery, and then they abruptly pulled their application from Orange County IDA, put it in with the town of Montgomery IDA, and it was being sincerely entertained.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until the committee for budget, I can never get the name of this, it's one of our Senate committees for budget oversight, public agency and budgetary oversight, came out with a report that had Medline in Orange County as a case study for the worst way an IDA could act.
Yeah.
And that's when they pulled the pilot, is when that report came out.
Yep.
And I think it's worth noting also that some news just came out today out of Orange County Legislature that the Orange County Legislature, I believe, has voted to get the FBI involved in investigation of the Orange County IDA.
I think it's not the FBI, it's
the state attorney general?
No, the
federal attorney general.
Federal attorney general.
Which to me screams racketeering. I don't know about you guys.
Well, it's in looking into violations of federal law.
So
which the state attorney general does not have jurisdiction over.
That's right.
It was just explained in the notice.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that happened today as well. So town assessor was in court with their tax levy attorney this afternoon, and Orange County legislature is looking into the Orange County IDA.
Yeah. None of this was on the agenda.
Not discussed in there.
Yeah, no. I mean, Don brought it up and kind of forced the issue in speaking to it, and I'm really glad that he did, but it was not part of the town's agenda. And I do think, like, I understand there's a part of me that you do need to protect, and you can't speak to active litigation.
Right.
But at the same time, this was the town's opportunity to say
that was
this
kind
is
of
happening.
A bum rush. They could have had an opinion on this.
Yeah.
They could have.
They're the one. Their lawyer is going to be defending, and by say their lawyer, I mean
say that.
Our lawyer, because this lawyer that is representing the town is paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Yeah.
So now this is an expense that we would not have had as a town,
right?
And to defend ourselves and defend the full assessment of this property.
Yes.
That was one of the ones that
we're at 18 minutes now, aren't we?
Yeah, 19 minutes.
Yeah, my internal clock's running a little slow, but
all right. What else?
Well, there was a business. Well, first, should we go through comprehensive plan?
Yes, you do that because I stepped out for a minute.
Okay. Well, basically, it was just very quick. Apparently, Max, I don't understand. We missed our opportunity to talk to Max. I don't know if he had something else to do tonight or if he left the country or...
He's the lawyer helping with the zoning...
planner. The planner.
Oh, the planner helping with the zoning code updates,
But what the town board did do is they set the public hearing for review of the updated zoning laws to meet the recommendations of the comprehensive plan for October the 21st at 6:30 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
So be there with your opinions, please, especially if you are strong opinions.
Right.
Because it's healthy. It's healthy for democracy.
Yep.
Yeah.
The next thing was the annexation, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. So for the annexation, we had tailgated about this, I think, one or two episodes ago. This is for a piece of property off Dunn Road that the village of Montgomery would like to take over as village municipality property, not own the property, but just have jurisdiction over, which is currently town property, because the town there's an applicant who wanted to build a outdoor construction storage for their equipment. Outdoor construction equipment storage is what it was, and the town said the town planning board and zoning board denied that application because it was not within the zoning codes to put that level of development in the current location where it was. So this applicant, or however this got to the village to say, well, I shouldn't say what they said, what I think they said.
Okay, that's okay.
That's not fair. What was being proposed and passed tonight is to have that piece of property now belong to the village, who can then change the zoning to say it's okay to put the construction yard where they originally wanted to go. And the reason I say it's circumvented is because the applicant who wanted this done was the one who presented in the town board meeting and the joint meeting in the last in the joint meeting with the town and the village.
Right.
And the reason they said they wanted it to go to the village is to tie into the water and sewer, which I don't buy, because I don't really believe that they need a lot of water and sewer for construction storage yard. There was a question of fire suppression, but that was unclear. And I sat through that meeting and I don't remember them mentioning fire suppression once. Do you?
No. Oh, I was late.
You weren't there.
I was teaching Taekwondo.
So it was interesting because Ron Feller brought up in today's meeting that one of the reasons they wanted water and sewer was to have fire suppression, which I sat there questioning myself. Like, I looked at my notes. I don't remember once in the public hearing them mentioning fire suppression. So I don't know where that came from.
Right.
And I didn't think it was fair for him to say the reason he was voting yes on something was for something that's never been discussed in public.
Well, I think the
airport is looking to get water sewer.
Okay.
From the village of Montgomery, that's why they're bringing it down.
Which is, I think, reasonable. I just don't think, it wasn't clear to me that this applicant needed water and sewer.
And Kristen Brown made a good point.
And even if they did.
I don't think the board, other folks on the board really caught what she was saying, but if Butler did need water and sewer for where they are currently located, they are very close to the Medline connection point.
Right.
Because that's just halfway down 416.
Yeah.
And if they're right there on the corner of 416, it would have been a very easy pipe run if that's really what they needed for their business.
Right.
Was that water and sewer. I understand they need a larger lot, like a bigger yard.
Right.
I totally get that as well.
The reason that was stated by the town board, because they said why they voted on it, which I think is almost the first time I have heard them say that in a very long time. Like, actually give a reason for why they're voting on something. Mm-hmm. I'd like to take some credit that you and I have been, maybe they've been watching us and saying, you should say why you do or don't vote for something. The reason Sherry Melick is for approving this annexation is because the village wants it. That was what she said.
And they're going to get the taxes.
And they're going to get the taxes.
Which means the town is not going to get the taxes.
Yeah. That to me did not seem like a valid enough reason, in my opinion. Brian was for this because, and his point is, we didn't discuss this before, what this would do and accomplish is move Butler storage, construction storage from its current location, which is right by the sign of the Village of Montgomery, and kind of tuck it away off Dunn Road so that something else could be done at what they call like the gateway to the Village of Montgomery. And I am actually very much in favor of having something else in that gateway, but why are we doing it at the expense of violating our zoning codes and circumventing what we have as the zoning of our town? Why couldn't Butler find a different piece of property that was appropriately zoned for what they wanted? So I see where Brian's coming, and I'm in agreement with him, but I think the solution is the wrong solution. That's how I felt about it.
It's fair. Yeah.
Of all the members that were there, Cindy Voss was not there. Brian voted in favor. Sherry voted in favor. Ron Feller voted in favor. Kristen Brown voted no.
Right.
If you were there, what would have you done? Do you know?
I'm pretty sure I would have voted no. And really, it's just because I don't think that if mom tells you you can't have ice cream after dinner, you go ask dad.
Yep. Yeah.
I'm saying this as a member of a blended family with 3 parents, a lot of grandparents. You have to parent together.
Right.
And to some extent, municipal governance in a town with 3 villages and a hamlet requires some level of cooperation.
And a town.
Yeah.
It's a town with a town.
It's a town.
3 villages and a hamlet.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think it's too much to ask. I pay taxes to both the town and the village.
Yeah.
And that's the way I feel about it.
I'm with you. I think I would have. I can't ever say for sure what I would do in an exact situation, but the way, if I was sitting there tonight and what I know tonight,
with the information we have in hand,
that is how I would have voted. I would have said that this was not a good choice for the town, and I would have challenged them and challenged the real estate agent to find a better piece of property that was appropriately zoned for what this company wanted to do.
Yeah. Or they could have modified their application to the planning board.
Right.
To have indoor storage or a paved yard. Right. There were other options.
Right. Yeah, that's a really good point. Mm-hmm. It was outdoor. And I have to say, I can actually hear Butler backing up from my current home. So early in the morning is when I typically hear it. It's the beeping, which I know so many people in the town and of Montgomery are now used to hearing as the track backup. And I'm thinking to myself, they're moving it closer to the village. And they're expanding. No, it's not closer. It's farther away. It's farther away because it's down the road and on the other side. So but bigger. Much, much bigger. So I don't know how
40,000 square feet.
Yeah. I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, it's going to the village. So what will happen is the Village of Montgomery is going to change my guess.
What is your forecast?
This is my forecast. My prediction is that the Village of Montgomery is going to change the zoning on this lot of property to accommodate the outdoor construction storage. You heard it here now.
Village of Montgomery residents, of which I am one, this will be an opportunity for us to speak even more about this in a public hearing.
Right. Is there anything else?
I do want to say on the agenda was a SPOMA presentation.
Yes.
And the fellow that did this presentation, Mike... it starts with a V. He's very nice. I've met him twice.
I wrote it down.
He's from Minnesink.
Yeah.
And he's a historian, and he's on the SPOMA committee, and he presented a resolution for the board to review that spoke to the fact that SPOMA, which is the Sacred Place of My Ancestors Committee, which is in charge of the African American burial ground on 416. They're collecting a lot of information. They're doing a lot of research into our town. They're doing a lot of like actual physical ground truthing in that cemetery to see if they can find where folks have been buried, and to try to determine any information that they can about them. And he was really, the root of his resolution was to ask the town to commit to storing that information on purpose. And the reason why he had to ask the town to do this is partly because the town once had a record of free children who were born to enslaved mothers, and that information has been lost. The book is gone. Nobody knows where it is. The town cannot produce this important historic record. In the late 1700s, New York State passed a gradual abolition of slavery act, and basically what it said is we're not going to free everybody at once. Enslaved people are going to stay enslaved, but their children will be free after they serve for 28 years to the people that own their parents. That's a really broad summary.
Really good summary.
The law sounds great if you read it. New York State was first in abolition, one of the first, but it was not a very great act for the enslaved people. It's still, there was a long road for them. So based on that act, there were records that were required for all children who were born to enslaved mothers, so they could keep track of the children who were freed children and who would be free as adults.
Right.
And that's the information that was lost.
Yeah. So the town, what he's proposing is that the town of Montgomery creates and does the research to create the record book. He gave the goal of February for Black History Month.
For this resolution to be passed.
For the resolution to be passed and for the record book. And that he did say that Minisink has this record book.
Yeah, they never lost theirs.
Yeah.
And it's a great record. And yeah.
He said that a lot of people in his community look and research their family history in it.
Yeah. So I think that's the only other thing. There was a bunch of...
The Ride for Kids I want to just talk about because... so for those that remember, a couple weeks ago, there was a fundraiser for Ride for Kids, which is for fundraising for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. And the goal of the organizers, who are Village of Montgomery residents, was $40,000, and they raised $50,000 for the Pediatric Brain Tumor Foundation. It was a really wonderful event. Karina and I had the pleasure of volunteering. We were doing registration for the event that day.
Next year we're going to ride our motorcycles. Well, I'm going to ride my motorcycle.
I was like, I'll ride in your sidecar. Do you have one?
No.
You have a year to get one.
Well, I'll just get... Why don't you just ride behind me?
Oh, I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Debbie said sidecar. Because she just thought it was funny. All right.
So I think we're 35 minutes, but if we can stretch it out for 5 more minutes, we've been on for 2 minutes for every one episode that we've had.
Oh my gosh.
Should we stretch it out?
No. A lot lot of people want to go home. It was a long meeting.
Yeah.
So where can I see more of you this week?
This week you can find me on the internet. I'm also going to be walking around talking to people because I don't know if you know this, but much like you, I'm running for town board.
Yes.
Yeah. Where can I find you?
I'm also on the internet. You can find me on my Facebook page, which is Sylvia Rinaldi for Montgomery Town Board. I also have a website, which is Rinaldi for Montgomery. I periodically also post to Instagram. And what I wanted to say is that when I've been walking around the town of Montgomery, I have met a bunch of people who watch me on Town Hall Tailgate.
Which is ridiculous and wonderful. Thank you.
That I didn't know before I knocked on their door and said, hi, I'm Sylvia and I'm running for town board. And I just want to say, like, how amazing it has been to meet every single one of you. You've really, like, made an impression on me, and I hope that we've been able to give you good content about what's going on in your own town, and it's such a pleasure to have that conversation, and I fangirl them for watching me because I'm like, they recognize me from this, and it's so humbling.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
And so you can vote to have us on your town board here in the town of Montgomery. The election, early voting starts October 23rd. It goes through October 31st. And that closest location is at the Montgomery Senior Center. I will also post that on my Facebook for the times. And then on your normal voting day, which is November 2nd, which is your normal polling location.
Right.
Polls are open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. You can also vote absentee this year, and I'll also post the website for that on my Facebook, and I'll maybe put it in the comments here.
And if you're not registered to vote, you have until next Friday to get it postmarked and sent in.
Yeah.
So.
Fran said this Friday.
It's the 8th. It's actually coming up.
It's this Friday.
Yeah. It's postmarked by tomorrow. But you know what?
You can also drop them off in Goshen.
You can, and if you miss the deadline, do not take that as a chance to not register to vote.
Yeah.
I've been periodically giving people who are not registered to vote the registration forms, and I have Star Wars stamps that they put on. So I'm sure the Board of Elections in Goshen has been getting handfuls of voter registrations with C-3PO and BB-8 stamps on them, so they all know that I was behind it. Sometimes you got to make fun
we
of
really
these
should
things.
wrap this up. They're gonna get the big hook out.
We are getting so many
Where's the
times
gong?
to go.
Your meeting is now officially longer than a town board meeting.
Oh no, sorry.
We better.
We're being
You're
teased.
supposed to be consolidating.
I know, it was a lot tonight.
It was a lot tonight.
All right, everybody. We hope
Have
to
a
see
good
you around.
night.
Have a good night.